on it, and I found out the fields created by the left-hand spin are electrically negative. And I can push them around and move them like that. So if I'm holding the positive end, it'll zap right to me, and I'm the sensor, and it hurts very bad. It's maybe not a great experiment, but it definitely showed me these things are negative electric charge. So I'm going to make a right-hand spin one and see if it acts like a positron. But I'm pretty sure it's going to, because this acts completely negatively, and I'm running alternating current into it. And I think this gives us some really good insight as to how an electron might actually be made as far as the internal format. Anyway, just wanted to share that with everyone.
Zapping yourself is not the ideal way of testing whether it's on, though.
Yeah, that's definitely the way to test if your heart is still on in the morning or immediately thereafter.
I know there are better sensors, but they're harder to build, and I already exist, so...
It doesn't get greener than that, right? That's the organic way is the green way.
Right, so blue shit, what is like RGB, like red, blue, green, but we're taught primary colors are red, blue, yellow, and you have the red, blue shift, red, hot and faster, future, blue, slower, death, like, well, what is all of this stuff? How does it, what is the green then? Like,
that is rough. I better open a window. I mean, this stinks like
why not see why I'm
pretty
here?
bad.
Oh, once again, proper safety in the lab of well-ventilated air and...
So, once again, please don't do this at home, people listening to this. I know he's doing it at his home.
Woo! I'll tell you, man, that is definitely a stench that you do not want to continuously breathe in. I mean, like I said, it smells like a small scale train set, except for we have very clearly burning sensations of the enamel, and the fact that it's smoking, I think, says it all. And that's the 700 watt limitation. It needs 1400 watts. That's the minimum limitation for this type of transmutation phenomena. And that glow that we've seen, even though, of course, the video is short and it didn't last very long until my transformer almost caught fire, we see this very bright luminous event at the end of the copper electrode. And when it goes from basically our normal copper phosphorescent type of output from green to white, and we get a very widespread spectrum. The spread spectrum in terms of the spectroscopy of individual metalloid elements is an indicator of what is coming out of that system. So when we get the wavelength shift from one color to another, what we're looking at there is a real-time transmutation of physical elements from copper into other heavier metals. And they are happening via a fusion event at the tip of the electrode from the copper wire, which is a 14 gauge solid electrode, into other heavier elements. And that's exactly why we get that transmutation shift. That's exactly why we get the other wavelengths. We can see them on the spectrum, and there's only one way to generate those types of spectrum, and that's through transmutation. You have to have these other elements. So basically what we just did there in our tiny little 30-second lasting experiment before the transformer started to smoke is a real-time proof live streamed of physical transmutation, real alchemy of electromotive force, converting the nucleus of elements by bombarding physical protons, neutrons, and by ripping off the electron valence shell into other elements. I think that's kind of cool. I mean, personally.
Yeah, it's amazing. As I was just saying, actually, because I know I'm leaving early. It sounds like the show's going to keep going for another 2 hours, which is awesome. But it's all been great real science stuff, great experiments, great theories, great proofs. Like, this is all coming together pretty good.
And ending it with actual live transmutational alchemy. And so everything that Jeremiah just stated is exactly what I've been getting on my electrodes, on my anodes especially, but also the cathodes in this electrolysis jars and what the Iranian Keshi calls the cup of life, but that the only difference is I'm just doing it in water with very small voltages. And when you combine the two of getting that arc of the ionized plasma, ionized gas, whatever the heck it is, the glowing, gooey, ball lightning material, orbish stuff, that if you have that in water, then you now have the density and the mass and elements to be working with the pure metals and salts, crystals, and transmutations of no longer just the gases, but crystals and metal elements and so forth, and full-on fusion.
Yeah, it's really not that complicated. People think that this is an impossible feat, that you cannot transmute elements, but it turns out to be a rather simple endeavor. And all you need to do is strip the electron valence shells off and smash the nuclei against each other, and it turns out that they will combine. And there's no surprise there. I mean, if you have a bunch of protons and neutrons and they don't have an electron valence shell to block their communication, and you slam them together at a very high velocity, accelerated through electric polarized field, then you're going to get some kind of combination there. So it's not an impossible feat. I don't know why it's such a big dogma in the scientific community.
Well, I mean, only stars can make elements out of other elements, Jeremiah. I mean,
of course.
Humans could not do it. Obviously.
Right. Yeah. How could we ever step outside of the boundaries for cosmology and think that us humans, us pitiful monkeys, could ever do something fantastic?
You guys keep
that's right. Electricity doesn't
care
about our emotions.
Do you know the history behind why they thought fusion can't happen?
All right, Xirtus, you taking off, brother? I'll end it on your channel, and if you'd like, or would you like to keep going? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check on my dad, man, but I want to come back because this is pretty great. So I'll be trying to pop in and listen and stuff. So if I get some more time, I'll pop back in.
All right.
So would you like to go continue on your channel or end it on your channel?
You can keep it going. Yeah, just keep it going, man.
Oh man, that Transformers stinks
all right,
so bad.
I'll be back.
Sounds good, bud. All right, before we lose Thomas, I'd like to quickly bring up some ancient alchemy symbols and see if you're still there, PA.
Yeah, I'm here for at least another half hour.
Perfect. And get some AI going with that. And that I personally suspect there's like physics and like the form of like matter solidification of like crystallization and this cold fusion alchemical process that I've been talking about through electrolysis, everything that Jeremiah just showed in so what was that experiment called, Jeremiah?
So what we're looking at here is a modification of the Vega experiment.
Yeah, it's the Vega. Okay. Yeah, so that's the Vega, and then it's that's essentially the same principle and like experiments department as the Sapphire project, the Electric Universe group too, right?
Yeah, it's directly related to the Sapphire project work.
Beautiful. See, and then I see you want to do it underwater, but while you have the monoatomic metal elements of like gold or silver or whatever the heck you want, or maybe copper, and you can just turn that copper, add in a couple of these atomic hydrogen molecules that you're making from water that just happens off the cathode sides. That's a very basic of electrolysis, alchemy, you know, of turning water into hydrogen and oxygen. And then if you can just bump a couple atomic hydrogens off of this or on into that electrode that you have in this red lion, is what the ancient alchemists would call it, state, and that is this crystalline pink red active what we're now understanding as a metamaterial lattice structure. When alien scientists did an episode on it, Jeremiah, you were there a couple months ago, of this breakthrough red metamaterial lattice structure, and it turns out to be a combination of hydrides, a hydride lattice structure. So it's like, okay, so is that just these atomic hydrogens forming a like layer bonding or in between the metal and the water, like all these different things? But it's fascinating stuff.
No, right, you're not wrong about that. I mean, the hydrogen is our most basic element universally. So we can convert hydrogen into many other things, because basically what we have with hydrogen is a single electron and a single proton, and we can slam those things together and create brand new elements straight out of whatever we have for our working materials. So we can convert hydrogen into many other things, and the sun already does this. Any star does this naturally. It's not a complicated process. It's just thought currently in our paradigm of science that it's something we cannot control as human beings, but it turns out that we can control it, and that we can produce these types of phenomena very simply with high current and high voltage by slamming nuclei against each other, and they will combine.
And a key part is this aerogel stuff that is your material that you're going to form. I see this as like the monoatomic material that I make and have, and that it's in a nano lattice cell structure of, for instance, your shaving gel. You have it as this liquid, you puff it out, and then it's aerates foam but solidifies into that crystalline lattice structure. And that if you're getting it in these specific sacred geometrics, the platonic solids, but these hexagonal, pyramidal, crystalline superstructures, and that if you're able to have the direction of the current, all of those different nano particles flowing or aimed in one specific direction all at once at the moment that gel hits the air and expands and solidifies, freezes, and hit it at the same time with those resonant frequencies of the elements, and you've got some next level Star Trek 3D printing, essentially.
Well, now you know why I want your, physical gel-like aluminum structures that you've been able to produce in some of your various experiments. You do have, this gelatinous type of aluminum mixture.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
would really like to know what the heck it is. I would love to put it under SEM and figure out what it was, what the hell it was that you produced.
And how many different red lion reactive different metal elements and nanomaterials that I've also created, and these translucent pure metal element gels, and also what Keshi says are the amino acids and the oils that form on top when I drop my blood in, and then it starts foaming up top. That's essentially an aerogel that I've actually gotten several samples of collected before, right as it crystallizes and forms. And I suspect if it's coming off of your aluminum, zinc, copper anodes, that would be what that gel foam would be made of.
Well, I've looked at the samples that you have, and I mean there is a strange phenomena going on whatever the heck you have. I've looked at slime molds and various other things to try and figure out what is growing on your electrodes, but you have this gelatinous type of semi-translucent, almost almost clear, semi-opaque material that comes off of an aluminum metal structure. And I do not know what it is, but I would really like to figure out what the heck it is. How does aluminum turn into a gelatinous structure under these high salt conditions? And here's the point that I want to just throw out there for the audience. Salt is extremely toxic for almost every microorganism and other types of mold. So it's very, very, very unlikely that we have a mold forming in this type of gelatinous structure on these electrodes. So what the heck is forming on your electrodes that physically shapes itself, holding its own structure that continues to grow over the course of several months off of your individual conductors?
Yeah, and it literally freezes the biological decay. It preserves like the cellular biomatter, and actually, for instance, like mucus or like blood that I've put in while it's still alive, it will actually exponentially grow it like never before. And it literally turns into this gel-like, jelly cellular blank freaking what the hell nanostructured thing material like grows, and then like the blood, it will like actually turn into these plasmid clusters and then grow into other things as well. It's
I hate to mention Keshe, but like they did, even the Keshe Foundation talk about this kind of stuff and speculated on these topics. So
that's where I learned it all from.
They did indeed talk about these things as a possible outcome for the types of events that we're looking at here. And so there must be something there that we need to understand, and they did not provide the technical details. So I guess that's up to us as the engineers.
This aerogel stuff, if I'm making it, say it's made out of, it turns out to be like monoatomic copper if I'm just making it off of the pure copper anodes, or if it's off of the silver you'd be having and get it and can preserve that while it's in the foam state. If out of silver, you'd have it as the silver aerogel, and that it forms when you put your blood in immediately. White, just this white material just comes up with the atomic, each atom of the atomic hydrogen, and starts building and going up with the atomic silver. So what Keshe also major part says is that it's forming your nanocellular structure that is like your single just resonant frequency mass cell, I guess, or whatever building.
Yeah, my issue with Keshe is the same one that I have with a lot of scientific endeavors, which is they have this overwhelming scope or sweep of claims, and they don't justify them with any kind of technical data. And that's the major issue, is that they're not replicable. So
yeah, well, a lot of the work in progress and theory, and you gotta listen to all the testimonial episodes. They do about 14 to 16 hours of streams a week, but it's like
testimony doesn't
the issue is that out of that, I'd say 80% is metaphysics and like emotion and spiritual stuff, as opposed to actual real science, physics, and medical trial.
Right. And today's episode, Real Science, I mean, we can't deny the possibility of metaphysics maybe being involved in these things, but we can quantify metaphysics, and that's not something that should be outside the genre. My problem with Keshe is that they don't quantify any of the metaphysics that are claimed. And so we end up in this very weird kind of gray zone where there are no actionable pieces of intelligence that we can replicate independently. And so even though I do recognize some of the claims as being carried out by yourself and some of the experiments that I've done, I can't actually validate any of those things because the claims are not solid.
Well, it's like I understand the vast majority of it. I'd say about 80% of the theory of it, and then from what I've seen of all of like the private experiments before they went like straight into the non-disclosure areas of the Keshe Foundation from the public public population doing and building and testing them and then showing it to tests publicly, sort of thing. And then as each discovery or technological advance would be made, it would just like get expunged completely, and you'd have to either join into their NDA to get access and develop it more, or just doesn't really, haven't seen it really talked about or developed since, and a lot of the things.
I can agree with that. I mean, I've been lucky. I've never had to sign any kind of NDA. I've been offered many opportunities, everything from Skunkworks to others, and I have never signed an NDA. I've never actually incorporated myself into those programs, and so it was a narrow cut. But luckily, I'm still free to basically talk garbage online because I have no contracts. And that's a wonderful thing. And I would suggest that anybody working in this research category never, ever, ever sign an NDA.
Yeah.
You're basically imprisoning yourself when you do that.
A lot of NDAs, you're not even allowed to talk about having signed an NDA. So you have no voice.
I've been offered them a couple of times, and there's no way I'd sign that because odds are I'm already working on that sort of project anyway.
Oh, Adam, you so are. I mean, you've discovered things that these boys topside would be drooling over.
Yeah, you basically say you don't believe in the project because if you try to work on it on a successful project, then you already rejected it, you know.
Yeah, but not everything that has an NDA is successful, right?
No, most certainly not.
It's just like how
for the most part, like if you need to sign an NDA, chances are that they don't already have the answer. If you have figured it out, you do not need to sign an NDA. You need to stay far, far away from any of that type of dogmatic legalese. It's all lawyer talk. It's completely toxic, parasitic, and us researchers, we need to never get pulled into the NDA trap.
I mean, you say, you know, not every black project, for instance, is going to be successful, but like, what is success? Like, that's going to be a very different answer from person to person. And I think researchers, having it mothballed, rotting away in some warehouse, that's not success, in my opinion.
Well, that's why we do live broadcasts of these real-time experiments, even if the transformer happens to smoke and start burning up.
Yeah, but I think it's worth calling them out. You know, they are entirely too high and mighty about this shit, and they really don't deserve to be.
This is key stuff right here. Walter Russell and his sex division of electric current. Red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. When I have my coils, they're either triple solenoid Keshe wound style coils of copper anti-clockwise in sections of 9 that I would put into the electrolysis. It would always come out alternating back and forth between blue, red, blue, red, blue, red on the coils. And it's like, why is half of it oxidizing into blue and half of it turning into, is it hydride red or some other compound, but back and forth. And this red-blue shift that you're talking about earlier, and then, this right here, you have the copper and you have the ferrite rod in between, the electric vortex around and the magnet solid through. But Keshi himself, the difference between his Magrav coils that were of a same diameter throughout the coils, his spaceship reactor coils were these the spiraling small to large in the central to small at the tip again, triple copper coils over and over again in these multiple triple layered it's just like circles upon circles upon circles of copper solenoids connected within each other, and how is this, where do we get this red blue materialization of color, force, and what is, I just...
And this is where the spectrometer comes into place. Now, of course, you have been offered a possibility of getting a spectrometer. So I guess it's just a matter of you picking one.
And sorry, I'm also just bringing up certain possible references for AI art or graphic generations. The dimensional shapes and proportions of the octaves that Walter Russell used is, I also believe, a very key part. But
well, I do like Russell's diagram of the elements. I think that the snake-like elemental layout is probably one of the most prolific types of elemental constructions that we currently have in our modern science. And I absolutely love the way that it fractally plays itself out in terms of the multi-spectral magnitude of each of these elements. It really does seem to make a lot of sense. I don't know if you have a reference diagram for Walter Russell's type of S-curve elemental layout, but it's a very interesting and fascinating diagram.
It's vortex based and also on the octave harmonic scale simultaneously, which it's the proportion of how it works, just the symmetry of it.
Yeah, just to reference it, it'd be great if you could pull it up, because
I'm looking for it right now.
It's a really, really intellectually fascinating concept to look at the elemental layout of all of our recognized materials, and just to see them laid out in that particular fashion and how they relate to each other. It's quite unique. And yeah, there are 3 other variations that have nothing to do with Russell, which also, I think, concrete the same idea that there's a fractal association with every single element, and that we see these kinds of paradigms continuously executed again and again over the entire scope of both the proton, neutron, and electron ratios. But yeah,
the
there you go.
fractal geometries of it, right? Like the red blue once again.
Like for a physicist to look at this, for a chemist to look at this and completely ignore it, I believe would be completely foolish. This is something that really needs to be paid attention. There is very valuable data in what we're looking at right now, and we can't simply throw it off the sidelines.
Okay, so when going darker, you combine red and blue, you get purple. When going lighter, you can combine red and blue, you get yellow. And when you combine red and blue with green, you get 3 dimensions. Explain that.
Modification of the local refractive index. Explanation complete.
Oh, that's the key thing right here. How light the color turns into the mass. Like just so
Well, in the original periodic table, and geez, I can't remember who the Russian researcher's name was, and shame on me for not pulling up his name immediately, but he had understood in his original deposition of trying to comprehend the elemental structure of all things that we know in this universal constant. Well, he had identified clear associations with the fractal structure of various elements and was able to predict new elements that were not currently recognized based on their association within each other.
Yeah, based on this, Walter Russell predicted several, right? Gallium is...
Man, what I need to do is get some sleep. Good heavens.
Fascinating stuff. This is, the alchemy of these ages and the first sages from Thoth and electrolysis is the key to it all. And spinning water with 2 electrodes seems to be the key. PA, do you got... sorry, do you mind bringing up what you were working on there, good sir?
Oh yeah, I mean, you guys were just talking. I was just typing random phrases that you were bringing up and just rendering them out. Nothing specific.
Oh, I know, but it's magic. I love it.
So you were asking for like some alchemical symbols. So I was just searching for like alchemical Tesla laboratory and then throwing in modifiers like Cinema 4D ray tracing.
And so what are your thoughts on this red blue shift? And green is like the neutral in some ways, but in other ways it gives you a 3rd dimension while still in 2 dimensions when you combine it with red blue. And then it's like purple is royal, but it's dark and heavier, yet...
Or are we talking about additive or subtractive color at this point?
Well, what about stereoscopy? You guys remember those red and blue glasses that you'd use for 3D images?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's why I'm exactly bringing this up.
Oh, yeah. So then try adding stereoscopy or stereoscopic to the...
Oh yeah, there's actually a stereoscopic model that's trained to specifically do that. But if I just do stereoscopic and put that in, that should actually come out with exactly what you're talking about.
There you go.
Right? And like it's fascinating stuff.
Well, it's been fun, folks. I'm gonna
colors are dimensions, and like the mass spectrometer, getting back to that, and that's literally deciphering mass out of the color, which is you get density from these lengths of waves of light that are, what is it? Waves, photon. I don't even understand these ridiculous particle physics of like several dimensions, like imploded worth of just math that equals particle physics, I guess. But like,
hey, Bernie, I hate to cut you off, but I got to get up at 5.
Yeah, so Gerald, you've been extremely quiet, brother. Please share.
You got a word. I got a word in here and there. That's all good. No, you've been busy, man. It's all good. Seriously. No, Jeremiah was saying he had to go catch some sleep, and I got to get up early in the morning. So I don't have much of an update for you because I can't show you anything. I wasn't expecting to come on tonight. Otherwise, I would have set up a demo. Working on my electric scooter. It's coming along just gorgeous. I took a permanent magnet alternator and turned it into a motor, and I'm using that as the motor for the scooter, and the scooter motor is what's charging a secondary battery bank while I run the scooter itself. So that's gonna, I'll have demonstrations for that hopefully this week. I'm waiting on the last battery, so we'll have to see about that. And other than that, I found a book that is apparently written by Enoch, and I've gone through just part of it, and so far he talks about the qubit that nobody can figure out, how it's 25 inches, or roughly, I think it's 24.5, somewhere in there. That's
Is
something
the
I wouldn't mind
qubit
going over
actually
with
like
you.
a quantum bit? Is that what it's going to turn out to be? That they're talking about a quantum bit the entire time? This measurement that nobody can figure out.
It's interesting. He goes into how the pyramids are built and stuff too. So I'm going to go through this book and then we'll have to like rip it apart and see if there's any truth to it. Maybe correlate it with some other stuff that's out there. Who knows? But that's basically my update. I appreciate you giving me the quick 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever it was. But I have to bail on you guys. It's good talking to you all.
Much love, brother. Understandable. It is 12:30 on the East Coast. Thank you for joining in. We'll do another Real Science very soon, and we got to do the Year of the Coil and the electroculture, which so something that's kind of fascinated me is the electroculture like trend craze is just nuts, and like the 3-4x claims huge, and that it's in fact these solenoid copper coils, just like Keshi's pain pens and his Magrav capacitor coils, and that the claim is they have to be on the south side as the antenna into the ground, not the north side. And then a lot of people are claiming that they're supposed to be clockwise, and then others are claiming only counterclockwise. And now I've heard that certain ways depending on your hemisphere, which actually it's like it's the exact same principles in physics and field forces that Keshi has taught in his plasma systems and coil units the entire time. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like if you're in the north, you're towards the North Pole, you use a South Pole wrapped coil, right? And vice versa. You would put it into the soil and allow that energy to accumulate into the soil. That's all it really is. It's basically an antenna.
Well,
how efficient is your antenna? That's the question.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wrap my antennas in a series of 9. So you've got that vortex harmonic of 9 and 9 in the coils, or in the symmetry geometry of it, as well as I go counterclockwise, because if the world is going clockwise and that's, time moving forward, I'm thinking energy moving backwards is where you're going to get your effects from, and this inverse vacuum, zero cold sourced.
Well, speaking of moving forward, I'm going to dip really quick here, but I'd love to. I'm going to put this out there. I have 550 subscribers. When I reach 1,000, I'm going to release all the information on how to build my coils with tutorials, the numbers, the templates, everything. And then everybody else out there gets to experiment and see the anomalies I've seen.
Hell yeah.
And take it from there. Take off with it. Fly, swim, whatever it takes. I'm just saying.
Build a death ray.
What I'm working towards. As soon as I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm releasing it to the world. So
That sounds exciting.
I'm at 550 now, everybody. Do what you can. Jump on it. Let's get it out there.
And what's your YouTube channel?
Winnipeg Enlighten for Truth 2.
WPG Enlighten for Truth 2. And before you go, Gerald, finish that book on Enoch thoughts.
Well, there's not much to finish other than he goes into how the pyramid is actually, or what you see of it, all that sand, there's 100 feet down still of pyramid. And he goes into how the Sphinx was built and what it looked like before the flood. And there's some interesting details in there that I'd have to go over before I kind of spew them out. I don't want to get them wrong. So very interesting. But yeah, that we should be doing that the next science, the next real science. Or maybe sometime this week if you're doing, something on history or whatever. But either way, I got to dip out now.
For sure,
man.
That's exciting, man. I hope we get you to 1,000 so we can see that soon.
We will.
Darn straight. And I'm going to release the how-to of the big coil, not the small ones that you see. That one, it's got some interesting effects that happen when you're playing with it. So that's the idea. That's what we're headed towards. Wish y'all a good night.
I'm going to have to dip out as well. It's been a blast. Great talking with you all.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thanks for having me included. It was awesome talking to you guys. I'm dipping out too, so I think this might even be a good conclusion.
Exactly, a good ending. But
yeah.
PA, before you go, do you want to just show us a couple of those renders quickly? And that we're going to just have to do an Alchemy 101 episode soon here. And so you've done a lot of the occult esoteric readings on alchemy. So it's like you know all the references of like slaughtering the white calf or sacrificing the something color here or animal, like, so the red lion, for instance, is this crazy super reactive state that they call the mercury state of transmutation metals.
Right, and all you have to do is add a little bit of heat, and then you can get the mercury right out of that.
Yeah, exactly. But like I've literally turned aluminum to this red lion state and then rubbed it on copper, and they both simultaneously spontaneously combusted into flame. Like some crazy stuff that's happened in it. And like you said, you add heat, you get mercury out of it. But if you actually get physical mercury, like if this is turning into a mercury compound, but I'm making it out of aluminum and copper, well, that's transmutation of hard, heavy, solid metal, pure elements, and such things where you hear snake current, like a snake or bite or something like that in your readings. Think of that as like an electrical charge. The sulfur yellow is when you're cutting a charge or you've eroded through your anode, and then it kills this alchemy life reaction. And that it's talking about both current but energy. And it's like, this is where these gel super battery thingies of crystal, lattice, hydrogen or aluminum or whatever the bloody F. And it's like, it might turn out everybody can literally make this shit in a pickle jar with some fucking pennies and scrap wire and a silver spoon, and you've got metamaterials galore.
I got some of the images pulled up if you want to show them.
Oh, sorry, didn't see. My bad.
You were talking about monoatomic gold and lattice structures, so it kind of started out there. And then this turned into like awesome an aerogel powered Tesla coil, which doesn't exist, but it sounded like a cool thing.
I'm loving all of this, actually. Do you mind quickly, or I'll let you circle through all of them, and it was the gold at the very beginning. Look at these.
Yeah, these are aerogel lattice structures with Tesla coil prompts all kind of combined.
and many resembling freaking jellyfish weird creatures you see at the
These are
bottom of the
crystalline
sea,
lattice. Yep, there's another lattice
right?
there.
And how it interprets geometry in these hyperdimensional geometries.
This is all red-blue shift.
Right? Like, I think key physics and understanding that are not quite then just we're on the brink of understanding new dimensions, but it's Pandora's box, so it's all insane and can't make anything of it until you have it all. But once you have it all, it's...
You were mentioning slime molds at one point and anodes. And then you mentioned combining your blood that was starting to like turn into an aerogel. So here's like some aerogel blood.
Right, like, this is epic. I'm loving every single one.
It's kind of funny that we went from something really trippy at the beginning that was completely analog to something really trippy.
That's true.
Digital.
And I wanted to point something that Xirtus was saying a little bit earlier. That I mean, the exact same analogy applies to these AI image models that he was talking about for the general ChatGPT models, where they're really great at being generalists and it can impress everyone at like its general knowledge. And that's sort of how some of these AI art systems work too, where they're really good at being able to do 2D and 3D and realistic and surrealistic and, you know, impressionist paintings. But you can also train a model so it's just really great at making anaglyphs or those, you know, those stereoscopic 3D things. Or you can make one that is extremely skilled at just making alchemical symbols. So, like, for example, these are all supposed to be alchemical symbols, but it's not quite. I mean, you know, it has some of the shapes there, but it just keeps making like hexagons and certain like star shapes.
Right,
And
but
then
that's what I find so fascinating is how it interprets this like universal geometry of nature and like what rules and limitations it has and the structure it takes out of it, right? It's just amazing.
what fascinates me beyond no end here is that, like, look at how it understands the refraction of the different materials and the lighting.
Yes,
light sources are consistent. That's something that's really hard to get right.
You just brought back to the point of what I was held up on the very first image of the gold sphere, and that I was looking at its proportions and where it put the shadows and stuff like that, and was like, what the, like, it almost looks like the shape of the like billion-year-old freaking rock sphere thingies that you find with like the dimple or like the lines are like the disproportionalities, but they're called perfect. It's very strange. Needed a second look at it.
And it's funny too. I put in Tesla coil, and you can see there's like a little Tesla logo here, and then on one of the images, it's like an actual Tesla car.
but with the, like,
it's so funny.
Arcs coming out the back into the ether.
Right? Yeah, because it's a Tesla coil.
So it's like, given the amount of Tesla symbols that it could be bombarded with, and just coming up with one of the logo, like, that's pretty decent discernment by it.
Even on this one, you can see the reflection of the object on the table there, and it's got that like that blur to it, because it's not, you know, a perfect mirror. It's being sort of diffused in a way from the material of the table.
Imagine when it has as many neurons as we do.
When it's working with the lost Babylonian qubit.
So that book that I showed a picture of earlier, anyone that wants to know about the history of measurements, that book, Our Ancestors Are from Outer Space, the guy was an archaeologist and loved math. And did he uncover some crazy stuff?
Can you please share it again?
Yes.
Like, look at those reflections. Like there was a pyramid and how it reflected in that one. Like, and like, see this one. Look at that. Like how there's like very strange how it shadowed. Like an apple there.
Yeah, these ones were all supposed to be underwater. So cool. I love this stuff.
Oh, as do I, right? Like our ancestors came from outer space and NASA. Oh, don't stop, Thomas! Don't stop. Oh, that was all of them.
That was
We
all of
didn't
them.
go-
Yeah, I went
oh,
back
yeah,
all the
yeah,
way
yeah,
to
yeah.
the beginning.
For sure. Fair enough. And thank you all for being here. We are at 2.5 hours. That was epic. We're going to have to do this again very soon. And what I would like to do also with you, PA, is take like the different hieroglyphic and pictographic languages and geoglyphs or picture, yeah, all the ancient ones that are symbols basically and lost, and start entering them into the AI, what it just database and what it comes up with. And
I'm down, man. That sounds awesome.
Right, awesome, brother. And let's see here.